Do you have a favorite album guitar tone of your own?
Oh, the Killswitch records.
Yeah.
Um, it's hard to. I think End of Heartache was the first one where we really started to find the type of guitar sound that we really liked. And we did that, with layering. We used a number of amps on that. The Famous Dragon being one, 5150. We paired some different cabs, and then we spent a little bit more time on Daylight Dies, just trying to capture that with a single guitar tone on each side. Instead of having the quadruple track rhythms, because it took us like a month just to track guitars for Heartache.
Sheesh, that's crazy.
It was just long days there, 10, 12-hour days. With Daylight Dies, we kind of spent a lot of time just playing with mics and stuff like that, and we ended up using the Soldano SLO. Through a Mason Adam for that. I can't remember what Adam used for mics. I think it was a 57 and then something blended with it. Maybe it wasn't like a fancy mic. It's like AKG, like C3000 or something on the side that we kind of, if I remember correctly, I can't quite remember. It's been a long time. But I think as far as just a single straight in guitar tone that felt good to play through at the time, I like the sound of the Daylight Dies guitar tone.
Gotcha. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I started mixing on these new or they're not new, but for me they're new. You've probably seen them everywhere. These Audio Technicas.
Oh, nice, awesome, man.
Yeah, and I used to hate them. Somebody recommended them to me a while back, and I listened. And I was like, oh, I can't do this. But I recently decided to give them a shot again, and they have this thing where they're so curved everywhere, whether it's the mid range or this or that. They have such a steep curve that. How do I say this? If something has like just a little bit too much mids or a little low, you can kind of hear it because the curves are so borderline over EQ'd that it's easy to tell. And when I listen to Daylight Dies or the live DVD, for me, those are the guitar tones that still sound perfect on those headphones.
Right on.
That's weird. I'm not saying the other.
It's funny you mentioned the live DV because that's the same Soldano. We ended up just taking the live. We DI'd the guitars live, and then we just reamped them through that Soldano after, just to get rid of all the bleed and stuff. So it's pretty much the same setup, I think, as Daylight Dies.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense because that tone every time I listen to it, I'm just like, holy crap! I even bought I heard that's what you guys use, and I bought a Soldano to try and see. Well, first off, I've had so many amps, and that was one I didn't have. I was like, I gotta get a Soldano, but of course I couldn't afford a SLO because those things are just insane now. And
they really are crazy these days, man. I used to have two.
45.
I used to have two. Oh, it's crazy, man. I had two of them a long time ago, and that's back when you could get them for like $1,500. And, I sold one. I still have the other one, and the one I have is the one that we used on Daylight, and it's a factory modded one. So it has the clean channel taken out. It has the effects loop taken out, and it has a depth mod. So it's just a total clean, just the overdrive, and that's it. It's a really nice, simple amp. You can't make it sound bad. You can do the stupidest EQ settings, and it just sounds good.
Is that one of those amps where it's amazing for recording, but in person it has a weird thing to it, or is this thing just all around an amazing favorite kind of amp? Or
it's pretty great either way, I think, man. I definitely set it a little bit differently, when we record with it. It's because with the depth mod, you can get some pretty crazy sub frequencies. I think it's a little too much to record with. It gets cloudy in a mix. But if you're playing with a band, it's kind of nice to have a little bit of that thump coming through the speakers. Just kind of fills the room. So I set it a little bit differently. When we used to use it live, and I think I took it out for a few tours. But it's a great amp, man. It's great. That's one I'll never get rid of. It's just it almost sounds like it sounds like a really refined 5150. 5150s do that big metal thing so well, and it does that, but the top end just is a little bit more controlled on it.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned all those mods that it had, because as you're listing them, I'm thinking in my head because the amp that I bought was a Avenger. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure the Avenger is literally supposed to be the SLO without a clean channel, without the effects loop, and with the depth mod. But I for some reason, I don't know what, it's not the SLO, but I sold it kind of quick because it had this thing where it's it sounded really like compressed, maybe the power section when I wasn't even loud.
Mm.
Like I would be at, a bedroom volume, maybe just a little bit louder than bedroom, somewhere between bedroom and recording, but not like a bar level. And it just had this thing to it where it seemed like it was clamping down on itself. So
Yeah.
I've still never had the SLO, and that's still something that I really want to get.
That's interesting, man. I wonder what the big difference is with the two circuits. I wonder if it's different transformers or if they stock it with different tubes. It could be something as simple as like preamp tubes,
Yeah, it definitely has. I know it definitely has different transformers because I remember Soldano was so cool back then when they were still functioning as their own company. You could call them up, or as you probably know, I called one time and Mike answered himself. And I was like kind of shocked, and he told me, he said it's the SLO circuit with different transformers and different tubes.
Yeah.
And I think he said because a lot of their amps, I guess, claim to have the SLO circuit, but they're all slightly different, and none of them have those transformers. But
yeah, I think the SLOs have the DeYoung transformers, if I remember correctly, which I'm not sure what they put in the Avenger. I've never tried an Avenger.
Yeah, I think these days I don't know what they put in them, but there was a period where they had mercury magnetics in the Avengers, which now are considered like the sought after ones. Because now, and I say now loosely because I don't think they even make them, but recently they didn't have those. So a lot of people who were looking for Avengers were looking for the one with mercury transformers. But I've also heard that the early hot rods straight up have the DeYoungs in them, and those are really hard to find. But apparently you can find, I think it's a Hot Rod 50 from the 90s. They have the SLO, because it was like a situation where they literally had to send amps out the door, and I don't think they had the parts, so they just threw SLO transformers and like 50 of them or something.
Yeah.
But
right on, man. Yeah, I played through an old, I think it was a Hot Rod 100 that I tried at a shop one time, and it sounded very much like my Soldano that I have, the SLO, I mean. It didn't have the depth mod. The one I tried didn't have the depth knob on it, but it was pretty much the same drive. So.
Gotcha. Do you, when you're recording demos, do you mic up a cab, or you use a plug-in, or just trying to get it like done quick? Or
I'll usually use DI the guitar, either way. And lately I've been using just whatever head feels right through that. I have a 2-Notes Torpedo Studio.
Nice.
That sounds killer, and it's pretty much right there. Like you could use that thing for album tracks, man. It sounds great. And I'll usually set up two tones in that, and then a DI in case I want to reamp. So if they get something I like and actually send it to Adam or whatever, you can use it if you want. So,
Nice. Yeah, I just started recording recently here just because I got nothing to do, and it's been fun. I did buy your Dragon off of Graham years ago.
Thanks. Yeah. That's a good amp, man. That's a good one.
Yeah, it blows my mind. It's very cool. Actually, I found a screenshot on your old DVD of your Dragon propped up in the back when you were recording Heartache. And I'm like, pause, freaking zoom in. I put these settings on here, and I threw, because I have a 57, who doesn't have a 57? And I saw Adam like years ago, or maybe even yourself in an interview, say that usually you just put a 57 like couple inches back, maybe 4 to 6, which is not something I gotta say.
Like a hand's width, probably like 3 inches back.
Okay, gotcha. Because when I was reading these interviews, like they were not video or audio, so like obviously it could get lost in translation. But they were saying stuff like 6 inches back and all this stuff. And as a live guy who knows other live guys and studio guys, I always ask people how they record guitars, and a lot of guys tend to get that shit right up in there. So I thought it was interesting. So I put these settings on here and just threw a 57 like couple inches back, like you said, and just played some some End of Heartache era riffs, and I played it back with no EQ, just coming through the monitors, and I was like, well, there's no doubt that that's a Frameless Dragon on End of Heartache, because it sounds like so close.
Yeah, that's the main tone, man. I said those are great amps, and it said the only reason I ended up selling that one is because I had two of those heads, and we stopped touring with them, so I still have my other one at the house. They're awesome, man. They sound great.
Nice. Yeah, you have the one that recorded the album then still, and I have, I guess, the other one.
I can't remember what. Honestly, I think we tried them all because we used the Dragon. I'm sorry, a Cobra for some stuff, and then we used the. I think most of End of Heartache is the Dragon. But one of them had an issue when we were like got to the last couple of tracks. So I think there's like 2 songs on that record that we used a Cobra, and we tried to match the tone as close as we could. I think Rosa Sharon might have been one. I can't remember the other song, but most of the record is the Dragon with a 5150. You know, Dragon through a Mesa cab, 5150 through a VHT cab was the combo.
Gotcha. Yeah, I remember reading that as well. The whole VHT thing. That's like what VHT fat bottom. I've been looking for one of those literally to try. There's none of them around here, but they seem like cool cabs.
Yeah, they're the speakers are made by Eminence. They're like P50s. They're called Pitbulls, and they're super flat. There's no hype top end or anything, so they sound a lot darker than a Celestion. So if you're putting something like a triple rectifier, a 5150, something with a lot of sizzle, those speakers do a nice job of kind of taming it a little bit.
Gotcha.
I still have a VHT 212 here that I use for tracking sometimes. It sounds awesome.
Nice. Yeah, I think I was looking them up the other day, and I think it said that they were front loaded, and they had this whole. Actually, this wasn't even on their site. This was somebody else on a forum who was like very in depth, and it was one of the few people on forums who didn't sound like they were full of shit. And he was going into how because it's front loaded and the curve of the speaker is slightly different than a Vintage 30, that it'll do this to the top end and all that stuff. It was interesting to read, but I've never played one.
Yeah, they sound cool, man. Do you have a frameless cab?
No, I actually have a Mesa.
Mesa, nice.
Yeah, I had or Mesa, whatever it is. I had a slant. What is it called? The traditional rectifier for years, and I always wanted a straight because I hate the sound of the speakers hitting you kind of in the head. I always like to play guitar standing off to the side.
Yeah.
So I've been searching for the straight for like years, just like on the low. Like every once in a while, I'll just check. You know, in Canada it's called Kijiji, but it's like Craigslist.
Yeah. Nice.
And the other day though, I found one. Maybe the start of quarantine, so I finally have that. So that it's the same shit, but it's just the straight stuff for me just sounds. I don't know. It's not even just the fact I think that it's not hitting you in the face. It's the fact that now instead of having on the slant cab, 2 speakers summing, there's 4 of them. So there's like a deeper. You must have heard the same thing, I'm assuming.
Oh, totally, man. It just sounds more cohesive, man. It projects in a more even way,
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. But yeah, that's what I have. I would show you here. Can I do that? Got a really elaborate setup here. Oh, there it is.
Hey, man. Yeah, that's a nice rig, though, man. Proper.
Yeah, it's simple. Right next to the bed.
Got the Max on in there. Good man.
The fanboy rig. Yeah, awesome. I literally I got rid of my double bed and put a single in here because I wanted to make sure my monitors were a foot and a half away from the wall. And I was like, ever since I started touring, I got used to being in a bunk. I was like, I don't need this huge bed.
Right on, man.
Hilarious. Yeah.
Nice rig,
but
nice rig.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I don't want to keep you guys too much here, but